Welcome to the show. I'm Tim Beveridge. This is the Weekend Collective for Sunday, the 1st of March. Gosh, time flies, doesn't it? Into the March already. But anyway, coming up on... by the way, you can text your feedback anytime on 9292 and you can email, if you're not in a hurry, timb@newstalkzb.co.nz. Coming up on today's show, in just a moment, Politics Central, where first up we are talking with Jeffrey Miller, the latest news and thoughts from Jeffrey, Dr. Jeffrey Miller, should I say, geopolitical analyst. And of course, we've heard the news that Iran's leader is dead. Not just a report from the US, but from both sides now. But right now, welcome to the Weekend Collective. It's 3:09.
Politics Central.
Yes, right. Well, as you've heard in the news, a joint US-Israeli strike on Iran overnight has triggered retaliatory missile strikes from Tehran, raising fears of a wider regional escalation. It's been confirmed by Iran sources as well that the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in the strikes, and international reaction has been mixed, with some governments condemning the strikes, others urging restraint, many calling for urgent diplomatic talks. Of course, the missile strikes continue as we speak. It's very much a developing situation, and geopolitical analyst Dr. Jeffrey Miller joins me now. Jeffrey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tim.
Well, the supreme leader looks to be dead. Is that good?
Oh, look, there's just been so much happening. It hasn't even been 24 hours since this all kicked off. But yes, we do seem to have now the official confirmation. We've got the confirmation from the Iranian side that the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is dead. It's quite a moment. He's been the supreme leader in power in Iran since 1989, almost 40 years, and he's really been the architect of Iranian foreign policy since then. He's been the mastermind behind the various proxy groups, Hezbollah, Hamas, and so on, the Houthis in Yemen, and he's gone now. And so we simply don't know. We're in the great unknown. We don't know who is going to succeed him. Several of the other top leaders have also been taken out by these US-Israeli strikes. It's a real Pandora's box that's been opened in the last 24 hours.
I saw a quote, a comment that Trump says this could be over in a week, which off the top of my head, as someone who's not steeped in knowledge about this area, does seem to me to be a bit of a naive comment. What do you reckon?
Well, look, I think Donald Trump has unleashed forces that he may not be able to control at this point, and I'm paraphrasing there Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, who said as much at a special session of the UN Security Council today. And, Donald Trump may just want to pack up and go home because he's had that success, that rush of blood to the head of killing the supreme leader of Iran. Remember, Donald Trump loves these big performative strikes, killing individuals, whether it's Qasem Soleimani. He still talks about that, the top Iranian general that he killed back in 2020. He loves these performative strikes and being able to claim victory. Seizing Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela at the start of the year was another example. But you've seen the Iranian response. Iran has struck back at 8 countries. It's just incredible. In the last 24 hours, Iran has sent drones and missiles to 5 of the 6 Gulf Cooperation Council countries. In other words, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, all of these countries, Saudi Arabia, and then you've got Jordan, you've got Iraq, and of course Israel itself. All of the Gulf countries, Qatar as well, have been attacked except Oman, and they've done real damage to the likes of Dubai Airport, the Burj Al Arab, that yacht-like hotel structure that is one of the symbols of Dubai. They have attacked that and it's on fire. Hotels, it's just extraordinary. The pictures that are coming out of the Gulf state, these are typically havens of stability, and they're certainly not now. And you just wonder what's going to happen next, because there will be a great desire in Iran and amongst the regime to avenge the death of the supreme leader, of Ali Khamenei. And so I think the gloves will be off as far as Iran is concerned. Then this is not the performative strike against the US airbase in Qatar that was telegraphed in advance that we saw last June. This is of something of a completely different magnitude.
Was the strike in any way justified under international law?
I don't think so, because there was no imminent threat from Iran. Iran was not going to strike at the United States tomorrow. It wasn't going to strike Israel next week. Iran had been very much not decimated, but it had been weakened severely by that war, that 12-day war last June. And the negotiations were ongoing. We had that third round of negotiations between the United States and Iran, brokered by Oman in Geneva on Thursday. And there was talk that there was going to be another round of negotiations in Vienna at a technical level this coming week. but that just hasn't happened, and instead you've had the United States once again use diplomacy really as cover for a great deception. And they came in when we kind of, in a way, we weren't expecting it. We thought that something could happen, but the timing of this, it came just before 10 a.m. Iran time. We would normally expect a strike to come in the middle of the night at local time in Iran, but it came during the day, and it came when the negotiations did seem to be ongoing to an extent, but yet, of course, we've had this massive military build-up by the United States over the last 2 months, and it seemed that everything was in place. And the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle was the U.S. aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, which is the U.S.'s biggest aircraft carrier, arriving off the coast of Israel to provide air defense support. But Iran has done some real damage over the last 24 hours to Israel. There have been missiles hitting Tel Aviv, and that was the lesson from the war last year, from June last year, that Iran is not to be sniffed at when it comes to these missiles and drones. They've got some quite decent hardware, and they're able to do real damage despite all the air defense technology that is available. And you just look at Bahrain, for example. The attacks have been there on the US naval base, so the US Fifth Fleet is based in Bahrain, and that will be well guarded with air defense systems, and yet they've managed to get through. So I think Iran is more capable than many people think. And of course, the strategy from the US and Israel will be to try and degrade as much of their ballistic missile systems and to try and get air superiority. But I'm not sure it's going to be as easy as that. And I just think we just simply don't know what's going to happen next. I think, as I said, there are forces now at work that no one can really control.
There seems to be I wonder if there's the expectation or the hope from the US administration that this will pave the way for change. But I guess the question is, what sort of change? I mean, is there a chance? I mean, while there be some people who'd be dancing in the streets possibly at the idea that the Supreme Leader's dead, there's also the opportunity that hardliners might just be empowered to get in, isn't there? What do you think? What sort of change?
Indeed. Look, Donald Trump hopes for regime change, and in a statement last night, New Zealand time, that came out, I think that was really what his main focus was of that statement. I mean, to give Donald Trump his credit, he didn't really try and sugarcoat this. He didn't really try and claim this was a self-defense operation. I mean, he mentioned, imminent threats in the introduction, but then he went very quickly on to giving a laundry list and a history lesson about how evil Iran was and all the things that Iran had done over the years to the United States. And he ended by really calling for regime change. He said, when we are finished, take over your government. That's addressed to the Iranian people. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. He's very clearly calling for regime change, and he expects Iranians to rise up, overthrow the regime, and have a better tomorrow, as he would see it. But I think it's equally likely, as you suggest, that we end up with hardliners in power. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, I think, will supply the next leader, and will that leader be more or less amenable to the United States? I think, given what we've seen over the last 24 hours, they will be much more likely to be far more hardline and even less tolerant of the United States. So I just think we're in for a tough time. That I think the easiest way of putting it, I think we're 20 hours in, and I think we're just at the beginning of what's going to be a nasty, wider regional war that's going to have very much global consequences, including, I might add, for New Zealand.
But what consequences do you see there?
Well, you just look at where Iran is geopolitically. It sits there on the Strait of Hormuz alone. That's responsible for 20% of the world's oil flows through that narrow strait, that narrow corridor between the Arab Gulf state and Iran. 75% of that oil goes to Asia. In other words, to us, New Zealand imports its oil now in refined form from big refineries in Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, and that oil largely is coming out of the Gulf state, coming out of the Middle East. There are already ships that are avoiding the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Iran has not introduced a formal blockade of that strait yet. That may still happen, but even if it doesn't, you're going to see ship avoid that area, and shipping companies already are announcing that to one degree or another because of the sheer risk. I mean, would you want to navigate through that narrow waterway while there are missiles and drones overflying the water? Probably not. I mean, you just look at also aviation. Dubai Airport is shut down effectively at the moment. Many New Zealanders will fly through Dubai Airport on their way to other parts of the Middle East and, of course, to Europe. I was transiting through Dubai Airport a couple of weeks ago. Many New Zealanders do so. So, there are just so many second-order ramifications. But oil price could be the big one. We'll get an indication indication of that this week, and they already are slightly elevated. They're over the $70 barrel mark. When you couple that with a weaker New Zealand dollar, it is quite a powerful combination, and it could really see prices at the pump head northwards pretty soon.
Do you think the US has a credible endgame?
Look, I think all plans are great until you get punched in the face. I think was the quote from Mike Tyson. And, it always sounds good on paper. George W. Bush thought regime change sounded like a great idea in Iraq in 2003. And look, they've had some success here with the death of the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei. And Donald Trump will be drunk on power, I think, at this point. He will see this, wow, this is a big win. We've got the head of state. But George Bush had that mission accomplished banner back in Iraq in 2003, in May 2003. What came after that was just chaos and destruction and a brutal civil war. So my question is, what's going to come after this death of the Supreme Leader of Iran? It's unlikely to be suddenly, peace and harmony and goodwill. It's going to be a bloody all-out conflict, I think.
Because domestically, for the president, an action like this can in the short term sort of bring the rallying cry of patriotism. But what are the risks for him domestically, Donald Trump?
Well, the risks is that this goes very, very badly and very, very quickly. It turns into an absolute mess in the Middle East. And ironically, Donald Trump issued a national security strategy in December, echoing previous presidents like Barack Obama, saying that he didn't want to be part of the Middle East, that the US was turning its attention to the Indo-Pacific, and that the Middle East was now going to become a more peaceful region. That's just simply not happening now. As of today, things are much, much worse. But it's quite incredible to watch what's going on. And you have to think about some of the ironies here about Donald Trump being the chairman of the Board of Peace and being the recipient of the FIFA Peace Prize that he was awarded by Giovanni Infantino back in December. And he's just started now probably the biggest war that the US has been involved in since probably at least 2003, the Iraq War. But we've talked about many momentous events, Tim, on your show over the past year or so. I remember a year ago talking to you when Donald Trump was in the White House and upbraiding Volodymyr Zelensky. There have been so many monumental events with what we've seen with the Middle East, with the war in Gaza, the pager attacks on Hezbollah, the attacks from the Houthis in Yemen. The list could go on.
Yeah.
There was Israel's invasion of Lebanon. But I think this is the 28th of February yesterday. This will go in, I think, the history books probably as the biggest single day since at least October the 7th, 2023, and possibly even bigger than that. I just think this is just got such a regional and global significance. This is a catastrophe, really, in the Middle East, and Donald Trump will now have to own it. He started it. He's going to have to fix things up. So, the consequences and the ramifications are just enormous here.
Okay, lucky last questions. What's the best case scenario that happens as a result of this?
The best case scenario is that cooler heads prevail and that all sides go back to the negotiating table, perhaps with Oman, the Gulf state of Oman, as a broker once again, and that all sides realise that it's not in their interest to continue this conflict further and they need to stop a bad situation from getting even worse. I think that's the situation New Zealand needs to be speaking out for, because that's the only hope really of salvaging anything here. The worst case is that this just spirals into an all-out conflict, a civil war in Iran potentially, a wider regional war involving many, many other countries around the Middle East and around the world. I think, unfortunately, we're probably more likely to go down that latter road than the former, but we have to, I think, keep speaking out in favour of diplomacy, in favour of dialogue, de-escalation. Might seem pretty bleak right now, but I don't think there's any point in carrying water for Donald Trump. New Zealand came out with quite a weak statement today, the joint statement from Christopher Luxon and Winston Peters. It implicitly condoned the US and Israeli strikes. I think it was the wrong strategy to take. Other leaders, like the Spanish Prime Minister, have been much clearer and condemning the US attacks. And I think we need to think about the likes of Oman that have been brokering these peace talks. They probably knew that they were being deceived and that Donald Trump was just going to do what he liked, and that's what's happened. But we should be standing up for the likes of Oman and these Gulf states. These are our friends in the region. New Zealand's got good relations, good trading relations. Christopher Luxon was up in the UAE last year signing a trade agreement. We should be thinking also about these Gulf states, and we should be thinking about New Zealand's own security and the way that we make our living in the world, and we make it through peace and prosperity. And a regional war in the Middle East is not in New Zealand's interest, and it's not in the global interest.
Well, hey, Jeffrey, I really appreciate your time this afternoon. It's probably not the first time I've ended an interview with you with saying fingers crossed, but I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Indeed. Thanks very much, Tim.
Bye-bye.